T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
Hey everybody, we love those tropical EDM vibes from my producer friend Chico. Welcome to Brave Healing, Words That Change the World. I'm Laura DeFranco, and my mission is to start a revolution of brave healers who are writing, speaking, and publishing words that are healing themselves and the world. On this podcast, we're going to have the conversations you crave, the ones that create a ripple of healing. Now, I'll invite you all to take a deep breath with me and really arrive here in the moment in your body. Let yourself feel the words today. Notice how a word or a tone or a topic feels inside of you. Feeling is healing. And today I am way excited to be welcoming author, speaker, and retreat leader Albert Flynn de Silver to the show. Albert is an American poet, memoirist, novelist, speaker, and workshop leader. He served as Marin County, California's very first poet laureate from 2008 to 2010, and is the author of several books of poems, including Letters to Early Street. His work has appeared in more than 100 literary journals worldwide. He's also the author of the memoir Beamish Boy, which was named a Best Book of 2012 by Kirkus Reviews. His recent nonfiction book, Writing as a Path to Awakening, A Year to Becoming an Excellent Writer and Living an Awakened Life, based on his popular writing workshops by the same name, was published by Sounds True in 2017. Albert is also a master mindfulness meditation teacher and speaker, having shared the stage with U.S. Poet Laureate Kay Ryan, best-selling authors Cheryl Strayed, Elizabeth Gilbert, Maxine Hong Kingston, and many others. He teaches writing and mindfulness workshops at the Omega Institute, the Esalen Institute, Spirit Rock Meditation Center, and literary conferences nationally. He lives in Northern California, which happens to be where I grew up. Welcome, Albert. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a delight, Laura. Thank you so much for having me.
So y'all can run over and find out more about Albert after the show at albertflynndesilver.com. And wow, having just finished your book, I got to tell you, there were so many highlights and dog ears in that book after I was done that we could be here for like 3 podcasts worth at least. This book, for me, was amazing. And, you know, I've been teaching the process of body awareness and connection with writing for a while. So I wanted to start with this. How do you use meditation in combination in your own practice? And tell our listeners about how that helps reignite creativity.
Wow. Well, I think I'm meditating every day, formally, most days, and trying to integrate that. I was trained in terms of meditation, not so much as a mind practice, or a mind transcendence practice, but as a body integration practice. And I studied first, I started going to Spirit Rock in the early to mid 90s and going to Jack Kornfield's Monday night things. And then one of his teachers came from Thailand, this amazing guy named Ajahn Jumnian. And he had, not only was he a Thai Vipassana meditation master, but he was also versed in like chakras and shamanic healings and all kinds of alternative stuff. And he was all about the body. And so he would train us in standing meditations and walking meditations and visualizations. And all of this got me very integrated experientially with the body, and which was very terrifying for me because I had a lot of I had a lot of stuff from childhood, physical abuse and abandonment stuff, and it was uncomfortable. Inhabiting my body was not a fun thing for me. And, I spent most of my childhood and young adulthood trying to escape that through alcohol and drug use and all that kind of stuff. And so, people can read all about that in the memoir. But it brought me to writing, because right around that time, I was a visual artist, and I was studying photography, and then transitioning into actually writing. I got turned on to poetry in my mid-20s through a teacher at the Art Institute in San Francisco, and then I just learned that, I started reading all these poems, and the poetry seemed to come not only from a abstract spiritual place, but that abstract spiritual place was not abstract at all. It was like literally coming from the earth, and from the body of the earth, and from the body of the human being, and from the body of the animals, and that this all became such a mystical experience for me, that's where I started from in my own practice. And so I try not to be too heady about these things, and look more to the body, look to pull the writing from the body through the meditation practice, through walking meditation, through standing meditations, through visualizations that originate in the body and move outward. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I know there's going to be a lot of people who listen to this show who are going to resonate with what you said about not always being comfortable in the body. Mm-hmm. And just the thing you said about the difference in meditation between mind transcendence and body integration. Different people meditate for different reasons, but you and I share the body reason. And so, yeah, I totally get it. It's a very powerful and spiritual process, really.
Well, I should say, too, that this is all grounded in the breath. Mm-hmm. So it's all grounded in connecting with the breath and allowing that rhythm of the breath to drive the rhythm of the writing, and to interweave with the rhythm of your thoughts, and allow the body to inform the thinking rather than the thinking to control the body. And in my experience, all this does begin with breath, particularly in the Vipassana tradition. That's how we're grounding ourselves. That's how we're becoming mindful, is through paying attention to the breathing body.
Breath work is transformational. I hope my breath worker is listening. I learned a form of breath work called transformational breath work, and there's a million different ways to breathe, obviously, none of them wrong in my opinion, but I really do think that breath is the fastest access point to when you're doing this thing that we're talking about as far as connecting with the body. It's awesome. And so I know the transformative power of accessing your, a lot of people call it your authentic voice. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more about how you help people get to the point of writing and sharing their stories that way.
Well, I think it's, a lot of it has to do with what we've just been talking about, of offering these grounding practices in the body. And, I think when we first come to writing, we come to it from the mind and from thinking our way in. We have all these ideas of what we can do and what we can't do, and what we like and what we dislike, and all these sort of binary ways of approaching writing and creativity. But what I love to do is to guide people through these bodily practices, these meditative experiences, and then have them write out of that rather than out of thinking. So it's really, the workshops revolve around transcending thought. Not that the mind and thought is a bad thing. It's really just a tool. But I think it can get out of balance, right? And the things, writing is much more interesting to me when it's coming from this visceral, emotional, bodily place than when it's overly heady and smart. I think true intelligence is originating in the body, or at least integrating dynamically mind and thought with bodily experience. And so we do a lot of free writing. We do timed stream of consciousness writing directly out of these visualizations and out of meditative experiences. And what I found time and time again is that people are surprised, they're blown away, they're baffled by their creations. I had this just last week or 2 weeks ago. I was teaching at the 1440 Multiversity, this new retreat center down in Santa Cruz, California. And I had this guy, he was a business guy from Toronto, and he was just awed and dumbstruck by the fact that this rhyming, almost rap poetry stuff was just coming through him. He'd never written anything. He got to the point where he's like, this is freaking me out.
Yes.
Like, where's this coming from? But he surrendered to the process. He totally went along for the ride of doing the meditations and doing the writing exercises. And he came to this point of, and the work was beautiful. It was dynamic. It was fun. It was rhythmic. And, this is a guy who'd never written creatively, quote unquote, in his life.
God, I love that. Sometimes I get so excited about what you're talking about. I feel like people must listen to me and think, oh my God, she's a little crazy, which I am, but that's okay.
Never enough excitement and enthusiasm in the positive realms.
No kidding. I remember reading that piece in your book, as a matter of fact. You also share a story in your book, since we're talking about being in the body, about receiving a massage. And since I am a body worker by, trade, myofascial release and craniosacral therapy and touch therapy has been one of my tools for a very long time to guide people back in to that place that we want them to write from. And I wonder if you might comment about that. Do you still receive body work?
Oh, yeah. And I think it's particularly powerful. It's a very dicey thing, because it takes a lot of presence. It takes a lot of clear boundaries, a lot of safety around it. But it is a really amazing way to reconnect with that sense of self-nurturance. In my experience, particularly, I think for men who aren't that great at emotionally connecting in the body, and so for many of us, especially if you've experienced abandonment, if you've experienced abuse or PTSD or any kind of trauma, so much of that lives literally in the viscera and the bones of our body, and so contact and reconnection with the body can be very, just very tricky and very dicey and very scary. And so having the right practitioners and being able to be guided gently and supportively with good, clear boundaries is really, really powerful. But I think it's an amazing experience. I've had really dramatic and transformative experiences with different massage techniques that have just opened up energetically the body in just amazing ways that I think have enhanced my writing.
Yeah, definitely. Everything you just said about that is so incredibly important. And I know all of my healer colleagues are nodding their heads right now at what you're saying. And, I'm going to pop back to something you said about the poetry and your gentleman that had this flow coming from him and it surprised him, That's a very similar access point that I experienced when I allowed the writing to come from that space. And